Hi, I'm Sophia Martinez, and this is the story of how my passion for baking revealed the true ingredients of success and exposed the bitter taste of prejudice in my husband's elite family. For 3 years, I managed to keep my double life secret. By day, running my cozy neighborhood bakery, and by night, overseeing one of the country's most successful restaurant chains. I met James Winchester at one of my bakery's sidewalk tables. He was different from his family, kind, unpretentious, and genuinely interested in my small business dreams. When he told me his family owned the prestigious Winchester Financial Group, I almost dropped my piping bag. But James wasn't like the wealthy snobs I'd dealt with before. He loved my simple cinnamon rolls as much as the fancy restaurants his family frequented. What James didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd already built my own empire. 10 years earlier, I'd started Bella Cucina with my grandmother's recipes and a small loan. The authentic Italian restaurant chain had grown to 30 locations across the country, each one maintaining the secret family recipes and intimate atmosphere that made us famous. I operated everything through a holding company, keeping my name out of the press and focusing on quality over recognition. The problems began after our wedding. James's family, especially his mother Victoria, never approved of my quaint little hobby, as she called my bakery. Every family gathering became an exercise in condescension. "Darling," Victoria would say, swirling her wine glass, "surely now that you're a Winchester, you'll give up that little shop. It's hardly appropriate for our family image." I'd smile and change the subject, while secretly reviewing expansion plans for Bella Cucina's newest location. The irony? The Winchesters were regular customers at my restaurants. Victoria particularly loved hosting business dinners at our flagship location, bragging about her personal connection to the mysterious owner. Everything came to a head at this year's Thanksgiving dinner. The Winchester family had gathered at their mansion, and Victoria was in rare form. She just finished organizing a charity gala at Bella Cucina and couldn't stop talking about it. "The honor is so exclusive, so mysterious," she gushed. "That's real class, unlike some businesses that desperately advertise on sidewalk chalkboards." She shot a pointed look at me. I focused on my plate, thinking about the contract I'd signed that morning for Bella Cucina's international expansion. "Mother," James warned, but Victoria was just getting started. "I mean, really," she continued, "we're discussing a culinary empire here. Sophia, dear, this is what a real business looks like. Not some little bakery selling cupcakes to children." Richard, James's father, nodded in agreement. "The restaurant business is complex, Sophia. It requires sophistication, connections, capital, things that come with proper breeding and education." I felt James tense beside me, but I squeezed his hand under the table. After 3 years of these jabs, I'd grown used to them. Besides, I had other things on my mind, like the major business announcement Bella Cucina would be making tomorrow. Speaking of proper businesses, Victoria brightened. "I've invited the owner of Bella Cucina to speak at next month's Winchester Foundation dinner. They've never made a public appearance, but surely they wouldn't refuse me. I'm their best customer, after all." That's when James's sister Amanda chimed in with the final straw. "Well, at least we won't have to endure any more tedious bakery talk at these dinners. Let's keep the conversation to real businesses, shall we?" The table erupted in elegant laughter, while James started to protest. But I'd had enough. 3 years of hiding my success, of smiling through their insults, of watching them worship Bella Cucina while disdaining its true owner. It was time for a change. I pulled out my phone and sent a text I'd been holding onto for months. Somewhere across the city, my executive team was about to implement Protocol Winchester, a contingency plan I created for just this moment. "You're right, Amanda," I said quietly, rising from the table. "Let's talk about real business. In fact, why don't we continue this conversation tomorrow? Say, brunch at Bella Cucina's private owner's dining room." Victoria practically glowed. "You can't just reserve the owner's private room, Sophia. It's exclusively for—" "Trust me," I smiled, gathering my purse. "We'll have a table." As I walked out of the mansion, leaving behind a confused family and a quietly smirking James, who discovered my secret 6 months ago and had been waiting for this moment, I couldn't help but think that tomorrow's brunch would be the most important service Bella Cucina had ever hosted. After all, some dishes are best served cold. The next morning, I arrived at Bella Cucina's flagship location 2 hours before the scheduled brunch. The restaurant was different before opening hours. peaceful, full of possibility. As I walked through the kitchen, my heels clicking on the polished floors, the staff straightened to attention. They were used to seeing me in chef's whites or casual clothes, not the tailored Channel suit I'd chosen for today. Everything ready for Protocol Winchester? I asked Marco, my executive chef of 8 years. He grinned, already preparing the special menu we planned. All set, boss. Can't wait to see their faces when they taste your Nana's original tiramisu. At precisely 11 a.m., the Winchester family arrived. Victoria led the group, practically preening as she approached the maitre d'. "We're here for brunch with the owner," she announced grandly. "I'm Victoria Winchester." "Ah yes, Mrs. Winchester." Thomas, my longtime maitre d', maintained a perfect poker face. "Please follow me to the owner's private dining room." He led them through the main dining room, past the wine cellar I'd spent years curating, and up to the private floor. James caught my eye as they passed. He'd come separately to watch everything unfold. The slight smile on his face told me he was enjoying this as much as I was. The private dining room was my sanctuary, decorated with photos of every Bella Cucina location, awards we'd won, and most importantly, a large portrait of my grandmother in her original restaurant in Naples. Victoria immediately zeroed in on the empty chair at the head of the table. "Will the owner be joining us soon?" she asked, smoothing her silk blouse. "The owner is already here," I said quietly, stepping out of the shadows. The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria's face went through a remarkable series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally horror. Richard dropped his designer glasses. Amanda's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "This is some kind of joke," Victoria finally managed. You run a bakery." I smiled, taking my seat at the head of the table. "I run several businesses, actually. Bella Cucina is just the most famous one." I pressed a button, and a screen descended from the ceiling, displaying the restaurant chain's financial overview. 30 locations across the country, over $300 million in annual revenue, and about to expand internationally. "Impossible," Richard whispered, but his banker's eyes were already racing over the numbers, recognizing the truth. "Let me tell you a story," I said, nodding to the staff to begin serving brunch. "It starts with my grandmother's restaurant in Naples, where I learned that great food is about more than ingredients. It's about heart, about family, about tradition." As each course arrived, I explained its significance. The appetizer, my grandmother's original bruschetta recipe. The pasta, the first dish I perfected as a child. The main course, the signature dish that launched Bella Cucina's success. 10 years ago, I continued, I took those recipes and a dream and built something extraordinary. The bakery came later, a passion project where I could still work with my hands, still connect with the community. Victoria stared at her plate, her food untouched. All those times I bragged about knowing the owner. "You did know me," I said softly. "You just didn't think I was worth knowing." James reached over and squeezed my hand, pride evident in his eyes. He discovered my secret during a surprise visit to my office 6 months ago. Instead of feeling betrayed, he'd been amazed, and more than a little amused at his family's ignorance. "But why keep it a secret?" Amanda asked, her earlier disdain replaced by genuine curiosity. "Because success isn't about recognition," I replied. "It's about creating something meaningful. Every time someone celebrates a special moment in our restaurants, every time a food critic praises our authenticity, every time your mother bragged about our service, that meant more than any personal acclaim." Just then, Thomas appeared with an envelope. "The papers you requested, Mrs. Martinez Winchester." I opened the envelope and slid the documents across to Victoria and Richard. "This is why I invited you here today. Bella Cucina is expanding, and we're looking for investors. The Winchester Financial Group has first right of refusal." Richard's hands trembled as he read the proposal. The projected returns were staggering. Victoria's face had turned an interesting shade of pale. "You're offering us a chance to invest? After how we've treated you?" I stood up, walking to my grandmother's portrait. "You once said the restaurant business requires sophistication, connections, and capital. You were wrong. It requires passion, integrity, and vision. But," I turned back to face them, "it also requires the ability to recognize opportunities, even when they come in unexpected packages." As the family absorbed this revelation, I nodded to the staff to bring out the final course, a perfect tiramisu made from my grandmother's recipe. "The question is," I said, taking my seat again, "are you ready to be part of a real business?" The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with one of our handmade bread knives. But this wasn't just about revenge or vindication. What happened next would determine not just our family's future, but the legacy of everything I built. Victoria Winchester stared at the tiramisu in front of her, the same dessert she'd raved about countless times, never knowing it came from the woman she dismissed as a simple baker. The silence in the private dining room was broken only by the gentle clink of silver against fine china as James enjoyed his dessert, a small smile playing at his lips. All this time, Richard said finally, his banker's composure cracking, "We've been advising you about business while you were." He gestured helplessly at the financial reports. "While I was building an empire," I finished for him. "Yes. But today isn't about embarrassing you. It's about moving forward, as a family and as potential business partners." I pressed another button, and new images appeared on the screen. Architectural renderings of Bella Cucina locations in London, Paris, and Tokyo. Market analyses, profit projections, and expansion strategies filled the following slides. "The international expansion will require significant capital," I explained. "The Winchester Financial Group has the global connections we need." But I paused, making eye contact with each family member. Any partnership would require some changes in how we relate to each other. Victoria set down her spoon, her hands trembling slightly. "Why even offer us this opportunity, after how we've treated you?" "Because success without family to share it with is empty," I said, thinking of my grandmother. "And because sometimes the biggest victory isn't proving people wrong, it's giving them a chance to prove themselves right." That's when Amanda, of all people, started laughing. Not her usual polite society laugh, but real, genuine laughter. "All those times we lectured you about business, while you were probably calculating international market penetration rates in your head." Her laughter broke the tension. Even Victoria cracked a smile, though tears glimmered in her eyes. Richard was still poring over the financial reports, his expression shifting from disbelief to admiration. "These numbers are extraordinary," he murmured. "Your profit margins, your growth rate, and you did this all without any major investment backing." I nodded. Every Bella Cucina location was built on reinvested profits. No loans, no outside investors. Just good food, good business sense, and my grandmother's recipes. "And the bakery?" Victoria asked quietly. "Why keep it when you have all this?" I smiled, thinking of that morning's fresh bread, the joy on children's faces when they pressed their noses against the display case. "The bakery keeps me grounded. It reminds me why I started in this business, not for profit, but for passion. Every cupcake I sell there means as much to me as every 5-star review Bella Cucina receives." James reached over and took my hand. "That's why I fell in love with," he said, addressing his family. "Not the success, which I didn't even know about, but the passion. The authenticity. Everything you've been dismissing is exactly what made all this possible." The next few hours transformed our family dynamics forever. Richard, the shrewd banker, finally saw me as a business equal. We spent hours discussing expansion strategies, with him offering valuable insights about international markets. Amanda, with her marketing background, immediately began brainstorming ideas for the global brand launch. And Victoria, she asked to learn how to bake. "I want to understand," she said, wiping away tears. "I want to understand how you built all this from flour and sugar and dreams." Over the next year, everything changed. The Winchester Financial Group became a key partner in Bella Cucina's international expansion. But more importantly, our family changed. Victoria started spending Wednesday mornings at my bakery, learning to make croissants and gradually understanding that there's no such thing as just a baker. Richard stopped talking about proper breeding and started talking about passion as the true key to success. Today, Bella Cucina has 50 locations worldwide. The original flagship restaurant now features a wall of family photos, including one of Victoria proudly holding her first batch of successfully baked baguettes. The bakery still opens at dawn, and I still spend at least one morning a week there, covered in flour, living the dream that started it all. Last month, at the opening of our Paris location, Victoria stood beside me as I cut the ribbon. "I was so wrong," she whispered. "Success isn't about appearances or pedigree. It's about having the courage to pursue your passion, even when others don't understand it. I squeezed her hand, thinking of how far we'd come. Sometimes, I replied, the greatest success isn't in proving people wrong. It's in giving them the chance to prove they can change. James watched us with a smile, probably remembering that Thanksgiving dinner that changed everything. These days, our family gatherings are different. We still talk about business, but now Victoria insists that everyone sample her latest baking attempts. Richard discusses investment strategies while helping knead bread. Amanda's marketing presentations are often interrupted by impromptu cooking lessons. And me? I run my empire, but I still get up at dawn to bake. Because success isn't about choosing between being small or big, humble or grand. It's about staying true to your passion while being open to life's possibilities, including the possibility that those who once looked down on you might someday stand beside you. Finally seeing the truth that was there all along. After all, the best recipes, like the best success stories, aren't about individual ingredients. They're about how everything comes together in the end.
The grand dining room at the Ritz-Carlton sparkled with crystal and candlelight as I sat at the small table closest to the kitchen doors, watching my family celebrate Mom's 70th birthday in the hotel's most exclusive private dining space. 50 relatives had gathered for what everyone considered the event of the year, marking 7 decades of Eleanor Williams's remarkable life. I wore a simple black dress, quietly observing while conversations about medical practices and investment portfolios filled the opulent room. "Sarah, you're sitting so far from the family," my Aunt Patricia called out from the head table, gesturing with her champagne flute toward where the successful relatives were seated. "Come join us at the main table where you belong." I remained in my assigned seat near the service entrance, cutting my dinner methodically. The table placement spoke volumes about my family's perception of my status within our hierarchy. "I'm fine here, Aunt Patricia. Good view of everything from this spot." My brother David, a successful neurosurgeon, adjusted his Armani tie while addressing the gathering. At 35, he commanded respect in every room he entered, his surgical innovations saving lives and earning international recognition. "Sarah's comfortable where she is. Budget seating fits you, doesn't it, sis?" The comment drew chuckles from my sister Jennifer, a prominent investment banker, and my cousin Michael, who'd recently made partner at his law firm. They'd all embraced the Williams family tradition of professional excellence, while I'd apparently chosen a different path entirely. "Some people prefer staying in the background," my Uncle Robert observed, sampling the premium wine that cost more per bottle than most people's weekly salary. "Nothing wrong with understanding your natural position in life." My cousin Lisa, a successful cardiologist, nodded approvingly from her seat at the main table. "At least she's working consistently instead of expecting family support. Better to contribute according to your abilities." I continued eating quietly, noting how the Ritz-Carlton service staff moved with practiced precision around the dining room. My phone buzzed with a text from my operations director. "London property acquisition approved. Board meeting moved to 9 p.m. Also, Singapore resort opening exceeded all revenue projections." "You know what Sarah's real problem is?" my stepmother Victoria announced to the head table with authority. "No vision for meaningful success. She's content being invisible, watching accomplished people instead of becoming one herself." My Aunt Margaret raised her wine glass in agreement. "Exactly right. Look around this hotel, Sarah. The Ritz-Carlton represents the pinnacle of luxury hospitality. Staying here costs more than most people make in a month." The Ritz-Carlton surrounded us with understated magnificence, its classic decor featuring hand-selected antiques, imported marble and artwork worth millions. Every detail reflected the kind of timeless elegance that required both substantial capital and refined taste to achieve properly. "The service here is exceptional," commented David's new girlfriend's father, surveying the flawless surroundings. "You can tell this property has serious corporate backing. Probably some international hotel chain or investment group. Individual ownership of hotels like this requires generational wealth." "Definitely institutional ownership," agreed Dr. Martinez, a successful psychiatrist who'd known our family for years. "This level of luxury demands hundreds of millions in development and operational capital." I continued my meal silently, ensuring I remained unobtrusive while my family celebrated. My phone buzzed again with updates from my hotel managers across 3 continents. but I kept the device silenced out of respect for Mom's special evening. Sarah should observe how real achievement operates, my father William suggested, gesturing around the magnificent dining room. Maybe she could learn something about professional leadership instead of working those event coordination jobs downtown. Speaking of which, Jennifer addressed me directly while checking her Cartier watch. How's the hotel work developing? Still managing events and coordinating guest services. Hospitality management and operations oversight, I replied simply, taking another bite of the perfectly prepared salmon. Same thing essentially, she dismissed with investment banker precision. Service work with elevated terminology. At least you're maintaining steady employment, which shows work ethic. The conversation flowed around me as I remained in my corner position, invisible to my family despite sitting just 20 feet away. They discussed stock options, medical breakthroughs, legal strategies, the familiar soundtrack of their success-focused discussions while I observed from my assigned place by the kitchen. You know what Sarah truly needs? Victoria announced with the confidence of someone who'd married into family wealth. A realistic assessment of what genuine achievement represents. She's living in denial about serving luxury versus creating it. Some people are natural hospitality workers, Robert nodded with certainty. Nothing wrong with accepting your role in the service economy. Hotels need dedicated employees at every level. My phone vibrated with an urgent message from my board of directors. Emergency session called for tonight. Tokyo acquisition needs immediate CEO approval. Also, Wall Street Journal deadline for expansion interview moved to this evening. I glanced at it briefly and returned my attention to the birthday celebration. The reality is, Margaret continued, Sarah could accomplish more if she properly applied her intelligence. She has Williams' family genetics. She simply lacks the ambition to leverage them for significant success. Significant success requires significant sacrifice, David added, swirling his aged wine thoughtfully. Medical school was grueling, but examine the results. Chief of Neurosurgery, international recognition, access to venues like this. That's what happens when you refuse to accept mediocrity. William raised his crystal glass in a paternal toast. To Eleanor's 70th birthday, and to all of us who've worked diligently to earn our place at celebrations like this. May we never forget that true accomplishment comes to those who demand excellence from themselves. The family raised their glasses in unison, the crystals singing softly as they touched together. I observed from my corner table, noting how the chandelier light caught the premium wine, how the baccarat crystal reflected the warm glow of the dining room's sophisticated illumination. And Sarah, William added with fatherly concern, perhaps someday you'll understand what it means to aspire beyond your current limitations. The words hung in the hotel's refined atmosphere as I folded my napkin with careful precision. The skill came from years of luxury hospitality experience, though my family interpreted it as evidence of my modest aspirations. She probably thinks this is impressive, Victoria whispered audibly enough for me to hear. Being in a five-star hotel around successful people. But there's a difference between experiencing excellence and achieving it. The hotel's general manager, Robert Chin, approached our private dining room with visible urgency. His movements reflected years of managing ultra-high net worth guests. Understanding that discretion and immediate response were equally critical when serving elite clientele. Excuse me, Robert addressed the room politely, scanning the gathering with professional concern. I'm looking for Ms. Williams. There's an urgent matter requiring the owner's immediate attention. The dining room fell silent as my family processed his words. David's confident smirk began to fade as he realized the general manager was looking directly at me. Ms. Williams, Robert continued, approaching my corner table with respectful urgency, we need your signature on the acquisition documents. The Shanghai property purchase requires immediate authorization to close before Asian markets open. I stood up slowly from my budget seating position, smoothing my simple black dress. What's the total amount requiring approval, Robert? The $2.8 billion acquisition, ma'am. Also, your board of directors has assembled for the emergency session regarding the European expansion strategy. The revelation hit my family like perfectly timed thunder, illuminating everything they believed about success, achievement, and their own daughter's position in the business world. David's surgical precision seemed to abandon him as his mouth opened and closed without producing sound. $2.8 billion? Jennifer whispered, her investment banking experience finally recognizing the magnitude of what she was witnessing. Williams International Hotels operates 47 luxury properties across 6 continents, Robert confirmed professionally, with aggressive expansion plans for emerging markets. Ms. Williams has revolutionized the ultra-luxury hospitality experience while maintaining the personal attention that distinguishes each destination. Victoria's confident dismissal transformed into dawning horror as she grasped that she'd been condescending to one of the most successful hoteliers in the world. "I should mention," I said calmly to Robert, "that tonight's celebration is my mother's 70th birthday. We're demonstrating our commitment to creating extraordinary family experiences." "Of course, Ms. Williams. Happy birthday to Mrs. Williams. Shall I arrange for the birthday cake presentation in the presidential suite?" Patricia's champagne glass trembled in her hand as she processed that her niece owned the very hotel where they were celebrating, had been listening to their dismissive comments while managing a multi-billion-dollar empire. "Ma'am," Robert continued, "Forbes wants a statement about the Shanghai acquisition. This makes you the youngest woman to control a luxury hotel portfolio of this magnitude globally." My phone buzzed with notifications from my CFO, my legal team, my regional managers across multiple time zones. The hotel empire I'd built while my family assumed I was just coordinating events required constant strategic oversight and executive decision-making. "If you'll excuse me," I said to my stunned family, "I have a $2.8 billion acquisition that requires immediate CO approval. Robert will ensure Mom's birthday celebration continues perfectly." As I walked toward the hotel's executive elevator, I heard William whisper urgently to Victoria, "How long has she been building this empire? How did we seat the hotel owner by the kitchen?" The answer naturally was 9 years. 9 years during which they'd been too busy explaining my limitations to recognize my achievements, too confident in their assumptions to question their understanding of who actually controlled the luxury they were enjoying. Mom's birthday celebration would continue in the magnificent dining room, but the family dynamic had fundamentally shifted. The same crystal would catch the same light, the same service would continue flawlessly, and the same luxury would surround them as before. The only thing that had changed was their understanding of who owned it all.